topic of the day. Like I encouraged you earlier, you do yourself a favor to have writing materials. You do yourself a favor to be able to take notes and to note and to come up with action points after or during each of the things that are being said here. Not just the speakers. We heard the convener, you heard the CSO, you're hearing my own story. Please take points that you can write down and do something about your life. But this man is coming up to speak about Vantage economic positioning, and he's an experienced investment banker, an affordable housing finance specialist with over 25 years work experience with reputable brands such as KPMG, Deloitte, Citibank Incorporated, FBM Merchants Bank, and Family Homes Funds Limited. He obtained a BSc Economics from the University of Ilorin far back in 1995. He has an MBA with distinctions from the University of Nottingham. He obtained that in 2002, and he has an MSc in Major Program Management from the University of Oxford, UK, which he obtained in 2011. He is an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, HCIB, and a fellow of the Association of Enterprise Risk Management Professionals. He's currently the Executive Director, Corporate Services and Finance in ASO Savings and Loans PLC, which is a leading primary mortgage institution in Nigeria. He's happily married to his beautiful wife. Her name is Bisi, who is also a reputable chartered accountant, and they are blessed with two wonderful children, Ometere and Ozobehe. Ladies and gentlemen, we're glad to welcome to TESA 2.0, Mr. Enesi Makoju. Give a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. It's indeed a privilege and a pleasure to be given this opportunity to speak with all of you. I am grateful, my pastor, Pastor Shola. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll start with my thanks. The other thing I'd like to say is we're all here to discuss economic repositioning, and there could be a few things I'll talk about today. Well, you know, I've been sitting down listening to every word that has been uttered right from the beginning. And, you know, almost everything that needs to be said has been said. No, it's the truth. In terms of nuggets, and a few nuggets have been, let out this morning. Nuggets around mindset. You know, there's almost no week that I don't think about the way we were brought up. I'm Generation X. I mean, when they say he graduated as far back as 1995, I think it used to be introduced like that some time ago. Now it's as far back as 1995. So, you know, we're getting old. And I come from a generation that we were raised, like the pastor did say, to have a simple mindset. You go to school, you get the best degrees you can, and you get employed by a company. And the best companies in those days were companies that were set up by colonialists. So you get lucky if you got a job with First Bank, which was old Barclays Bank. You'd be lucky if you got a job with Shell, you know. And if you got those type of jobs, just pray that you kept them for 33, 35 years, retire at 55, 60, get your pension, and you had a perfect life. And that's the model. That was success. That was what our parents aspired for. Some of them were lucky enough to get it. And that was the way we were brought up to think. And, you know, till not too long ago, that still seemed to be the recipe. But in recent years, the world itself, globalization has shifted many things. And the economy has changed. You know, so many things have changed. And I think the mindset around success and how to achieve it, the recipe for achieving success, has really, really changed. That is not to say that education doesn't matter. Education remains very, very critical. Not because it's going to help you get a good job, but the whole essence of education is that it frames your mind. It teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to think in such a way that when you're out there in the marketplace, you are better positioned to find advantage than the person who didn't go through the process. Education teaches you academic stuff. You can't be an engineer, you can't be a doctor if you don't go through certain processes. But it also teaches you maturity, it teaches you communication, it teaches you human relationships. And most of all, let me tell you the most important thing about education. It teaches you accountability. The whole essence of exams and having to pass them is accountability. And as a human being, if you are not accountable to a thing, you are more likely to lose your way. The whole essence of education is you are tested, you are pushed and compelled to go and learn, retain information, understand it, and prove your understanding before you have the authority to use that information. So education is necessary. But after that, the other necessary qualities are more around mindset, courage, determination, or resilience, as they call it these days. If you're resilient, if you have courage, if you have, when we were young in those days, I always tell people, they used to teach us the factors of production. The factors of production when you do economics or commerce, where the first thing you learn is land, labor, capital. Those were the first three. Then they added entrepreneurship, But we live in a world today where the most important factor of production is relationships. You may not have any of the others. You may not have land, you may not have labor, you may not have capital. But we live in a world today, if someone sees you, likes you, believes in you, and calls you up into his office, you will walk out of that office with absolute value just because of relationships. And education trains you how to frame and manage relationships. So anyway, all of that is just, it's just an intro to what I came here to do. Okay, so I've done up a presentation, but that doesn't matter because really this is themed around having a conversation, and that's what we're going to have today. So I was given the topic, the topic of my own session here today is Vantage economic positioning. So I'm guessing that what that means is, how do all of us here achieve advantage in the economy that we find ourselves in? So Vantage economic position. I'm going to try and do some justice to this topic in my own way. So before I do that, okay, so the way I'm going to do it, right, I'm going to put some context in the conversation, and then I'm going to talk about Nigeria's economy, because we have to talk about the economy to understand it, highlight some key economic trends, then go into, challenges and opportunities, then focus more around what the opportunities are. And, while we're doing that, we'll talk about some case studies around people who have taken those opportunities and how they have harnessed them and achieved success, or achieved this advantage that we're all looking for. And we'll conclude, have a few questions, and then we'll take it from there, yeah? So, first, in terms of context, let me put context to this conversation so that you understand where I'm coming from. The first thing is, what is Vantage economic positioning? It's not a very, very common term. It is a term that is used, but it's just not too common. But it can be referred to be a strategic framework used by companies, organizations to position themselves favorably in the marketplace. Not just companies, we're also individuals here, because sometimes, the individual himself is becoming an organization. So the whole essence is, what's the framework? What strategies do we use to position ourselves favorably in the marketplace? Now, there are methodological ways this is done, especially by companies and consultants. If you call the consultants today, how they help you do this. And there are a series of models and methodologies that are known for, that are normally utilized for such things. Examples of such would include, you have something called the PESO analysis, where they will review the political context of your market, so the politics, governance, and all of that. The economic framework in which you exist, so the economy and what's going on around it. Social framework, people, preferences, mindsets, technology, which has become a very, very big thing. The legal framework in which we exist. What can you do and what can you not do? You can't break the law to make money. right? And generally speaking, these days, the environment has become very important. So some people will do a personal analysis and say, let's look at all these dimensions and make a decision on what we think is best for us. Then sometimes you have a simplistic model called the SWOT analysis. So basically, you look at yourself as an individual or yourself as a business, and you ask yourself the following questions. What are my strengths today? What are my weaknesses, especially in comparison to my competitors? What are the threats in the macroeconomic environment that make it difficult for me to position myself vantageously? And what are the opportunities that I can leverage on to get to where I want to get to? So you have the personal analysis, you have the SWOT analysis, and you have other more complex models like the Porter's 4-corner generic strategy, Porter's 5 forces, etc., etc. But we're not here today for an academic conversation. We're here to just talk and look at Nigeria and look at men like Mr. Ilachaba and ask ourselves, how do they do it? And how can we do it and get there? So, to that aspect, I have also said, I have assumed that majority of the audience here present online and offline. I'm assuming we have an offline online access. So, majority of us here today comprise of young, up-and-coming professionals and aspiring entrepreneurs who are continually searching to enhance their economic situation through, and there are two things. How do we define enhancing our economic situation? Growing our revenues. Everybody here wants to increase how much they earn, how much they make, and building our net worth, meaning, acquiring assets, hoping that the things we've invested in grow. So building our net worth, growing our revenues. And there is a third thing we should not trivialize, also growing in understanding. So we can grow in revenues, we can grow in net worth, but even if you haven't grown in revenues and net worth, and you have grown in understanding, and I think it was Pastor himself, or maybe it was Obiageli who said, look, sometimes you may fail in business, but never trivialize what you learned in it. So you have grown in understanding. That in itself, for me, is vantage positioning.
Yes,
so in view of all the above, my approach to this presentation will be to utilize a hybrid of personal and SWOT models, highlight key current trends and patterns in the Nigerian economy, and hopefully when we have this conversation, some things will come out of it that will help frame your mindsets in such a way that you, for yourself, can determine how to achieve advantage in this economy. Because at the end of the day, it is an individual process. I can only give you a framework, and at the end of the day, it is your ability to utilize that framework that will enable you to position yourself. Okay, so that's as far as context is concerned. So let's talk about Nigeria a bit, just a bit, we won't waste too much time. Everybody talks about population and population growth. 232 million people now. When I started doing presentations not too long ago, maybe about 15 years ago, as a young up-and-coming professional, you dare not write 200 million people. It was still 120, 130, 140. Now, they say 200. Well, and it's still growing, with 60% of our population 25 years and below.
wow.
So, I don't know whether that's a time bomb. I pray not, and the signs are not looking too great. But on the other hand, that in itself is a massive opportunity. Because if we get it right as a country, if we can reduce significantly the element of insecurity, get a more stable economy, with a young, vibrant population, we should be able to attract foreign investments, produce, export, and have a better economy. So it's what we decide for ourselves we want to do with the population. We have an urbanization rate of 51%, meaning 51% of people live in urban sectors. The economy has been declining recently, although in 2024 there's been some slight uptick in our GDP. So our gross domestic product has steadily declined from 2021, 2022, 2023. Just recently in 2024 there's been a bit of an uptick. So there's been some growth, 3.1% growth. And it's our prayer and our belief that this growth trajectory will continue to carry on. So yes, we know the economy is tough, but the truth is, because there is growth, those who are mindful of that growth and see where the growth opportunities are will be the ones to seek advantage. So there's growth. It's not yet all doom and gloom. Unemployment is rising. It's grown to 5.3%. Now that sounds small. You see, the way unemployment is defined is very generic. Once anybody is doing anything that is earning something, it's called employment. What we have significantly in Nigeria is not unemployment, but underemployment. So when you hear things like a PhD student is working as a driver of a Dangote lorry, that is called underemployment. You know, there are so many graduates today that are driving bikes for Deliveroo or all these guys. That is underemployment because we are underutilizing our labor force in this country. And that requires a lot of recalibration of mindset. The 5 highest contributing sectors in the Nigerian economy so far in 2024, as usual, have been agriculture, with 22.6 contribution to GDP, ICT, mainly the communication side, information communications technology, but mainly the communication side, MTN, Airtel, Glo, etc., about 20% of the economy. Trade, still a big part in this country. Our normal importers, exporters, supermarkets, H-Medics, ShopRite, everything. A massive part of the economy, about 16.4. Manufacturing, which should be higher than ICT and trade, unfortunately, only contributes 8.5% to our GDP. Only. That is an anomaly, something we need to look at. It's clear where the issues are. If you can't even power your economy, how are you going to manufacture competitively? Finance is a massive sector in this country, but that's also another sector where there are major shifts taking place. Finance contributes 6.5% to the economy, but it's looking like it will grow into next year based on the recapitalization requirements that government has made, CBN has made on some banks. And they've been quite successful raising capital. So expect to see some growth or some shifts in finance. How it's going to happen, I don't know. Because the fintechs are fighting the traditional banks. And yet it's the traditional banks that have recapitalized. But there will be opportunity there. So just remember some of these things. You see, competitive advantage, right? Growth, success. The primary source of it, the seed of it, is always information. You know, it is the person who is able to hear something and have and be inclined to say, okay, if something is going on here, right, let me find out what it is. And if you can research on some of these things further, and information is widely available, trust me, right? I mean, when Obiageli sends me this topic, yeah, what did I do? Almost what everybody else would do. ChatGPT. Please do me a presentation, all right? So I go into ChatGPT, and wow, in 1 minute, the whole outline is there. In fact, too much, I didn't need anything. You know, so what's happening with Nigerian banks can actually be a search parameter you put in ChatGPT. And to tell you, how is recapitalization going to impact Nigerian banks in the future? Go put that in ChatGPT. I don't know what it will tell you, but it will tell you something. And then, you know, you can start to ask yourself, how do I position myself here? So those are the main sectors that contribute to GCP. We've talked about them. So what are the key trends anyways, 2021? We've had 1 year of, more than 1 year of this current government. I used to be one of the main people saying there's hope in this government. I'm not so sure. I know they're doing a lot of stuff that is good, but they're also doing a lot of stuff that is not good. You know, and I would have loved it to be better. At least manage the upticks better. But I haven't lost all hope, and we pray that it will only get better. Okay, so what are the key things that I've observed in the Nigerian economy? Key trends that are taking place. Clearly, everybody knows 2 things disrupted us. In the last 1 year, 2 key shifts in government policy have disrupted the whole economy. And those 2 key things were, one, obviously, subsidy elimination. You know, I always knew transport cost had a major domino effect on the economy, but I didn't know it could be this vast. The way the cost of fuel has impacted the economy negatively, it's been tough. So there's that subsidy elimination. Then the second one is the liberalization of foreign exchange market. That really created significant devaluation, and it just made things more difficult for people doing business in Nigeria. So those were the first two major thrusts in government policy that impacted us. And that happened most of 2023, early 2024, it was really tough. However, in this 2024, with latest figures coming out from Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we have begun to see some growth in, I call it marginal growth, but it is growth anyway. So we're beginning to see growth in certain sectors. And then the other trend we're observing is there's now a major shift towards locally sourced substitute products. So maybe there will be a boom in the manufacturing sector. Maybe there will be a boom in agribusiness. I'll tell you, for instance, I am very involved in a business that is in poultry, right? Used to be big, it's trying to come back big. And, not too long ago, smuggled in imported frozen chicken that was of lower quality, you understand, that sometimes people said was unhealthy, was so much cheaper than the chicken we're growing here in Nigeria. Now with the valuation, it just doesn't make sense for them to import them anymore. So the broiler market, the broiler production market has significant upturn. What you produce will be bought. And the same goes for many, many other things. Yes, the imported items have become so much more expensive than the ones we make here. So there's opportunity for locally produced goods. When you go on the internet, when you go on social media, when you read stories around, this young girl started this with this, whether it's a food business or it's a that business, what you need to understand is, and you're hearing things like ShopRite is moving out of Nigeria, this is moving out of Nigeria. What you need to understand is, Nigeria has become more difficult for imported items to thrive. And there are local substitutes. The Chinese, yes, they come into Nigeria, they manufacture their own, but this is made in Nigeria. Turkish, they're here in Nigeria, they're coming in. So whilst you hear the Western nations are leaving us, a lot of the non-Western nations, Turkey, China, Korea, are coming in silently and are taking their place and producing these items locally, cheaper, and things are thriving. Indomie, which is one of the most popular fast-moving consumer goods in this country, it's actually manufactured by a company that is run mainly by Indians and Indonesians here in Nigeria. So there's a shift towards affordable and locally sourced substitute products. And because of certain shifts in consumer preferences, and I'll talk about them as I go another way. We talk about how our parents raised us and how we had these mindsets about going to school and all of that. It's not just about going to school and getting jobs. So many things have changed in the way the average Nigerian thinks. How the average Nigerian spends his money is very different today than the way it used to be. We live in an era now where if you don't go to a spa in 30 or 60 days, it's an anomaly. If you don't go to a spa in 30 or 60 days, it's an anomaly. Whereas growing up, it was just a waste of money. What are you going to do something for somebody to be touching your body? So, and those markets, wellness, beauty, when I was in my young days, there was nothing like a makeup artist. Okay, by the time I got married and things were beginning to change, only celebrants of events will hire a makeup artist. Today, everybody going for a party, early in the morning, will call the makeup artist to come to the house. And in the house, you get and they're just an invite you, you're not going out there. So these are signs of how the way we spend our money is changing. Wow. The way we spend our money is changing. The things we used to take for granted that there's no market there. Who will pay? No. We have now a millennial and Gen Z population, predominant millennial and Gen Z consumer population, right? That prioritize certain things in a different way than we used to. And it has even spread because they are doing it and we're watching them and seeing how they're living their life. They travel abroad. When I graduated from school, right, and I started my first job, the minute I got my first big money, I was looking for land. It just seemed like the right and sensible thing to do. We needed to build our house. How dare we go and buy a ticket to say I'm going to do holiday in London for what? But it's not like that anymore. And it doesn't mean what the Gen Zs and millennials have proven to us is the fact that they travel, the fact that they go to the spa, the fact that they rather buy delivered food than cook at home hasn't stopped them from even investing, making money, and building a network at a faster rate than us. So get that. And we now, it's at 50, we're copying them. Because we see you can eat your cake and kind of have it.
My God.
All right, it's the truth.
My God.
So let's look at Nigeria again. So we've talked about the economy, where it's growing, where it's not growing, what sectors and what's happening there. Let's talk about some generic issues around challenges and opportunities. Because we all exist in this. We're all going to sit down now, take a pen and paper and decide for ourselves how, if I came to there is no way all of you are not in this seminar, right, without a desire for a shift, an upward shift in your economic situation. I know that everybody wants it. So let's just go through some of the things you need to think about when you're trying to make those decisions. So what's wrong with Nigeria? What are the challenges? Stifling economy with declining purchasing power and disposable income. True. What we earn today, despite all these things I've said about Nigeria, what we earn today, if it hasn't changed significantly in the last 1 year, cannot buy half the things we could buy last year. Tough. And that's why we want to achieve a shift. There's growing unemployment. Young people can't get jobs. Traditional employment opportunities within Nigeria are extremely limited. Now, even when you have an idea and you want to raise money for that idea, access to finance and interest rates are extremely high. Then, even when you now have money and you want to do the business, there's significant infrastructural decay. If you want to manufacture something, there's no power. You have to buy diesel. If you want to transport something, the roads are bad. Your goods don't get there on time. If you want to store something, we don't have storage facilities. Wow. Tough. And that's the truth. I didn't come here to paint a fake picture. But at the same time, are there opportunities? So we've talked about challenges. Are there opportunities? Let's think about it. Number one, are we really limited to Nigeria on its own? Is Nigeria the all-in sum, right, of our existence? Is it only within the Nigerian frame we can get the things we want? I'm not too sure. There's a global ecosystem within the internet that has given birth to new opportunities. We live in an era and a time where the global outsourcing trend has increased phenomenally. So what do I mean by global outsourcing? I'm sure some of the younger ones here will understand. Global outsourcing is what leads to remote work. This was a big source of revenue and inflow into countries like India, Singapore, years ago. Now the Western world is beginning to recognize that Nigerians have that intellectual capacity to deliver for them. So the remote work sector is fast rising. And if you haven't caught on to that trend, think about it and look at it. Also, the Nigerian stock market recently has started doing well. But before then and beyond then, there are quite a lot of young, discerning entrepreneurs who have used the internet to have direct access to global financial markets. So there's been financial trading in global stocks. You hear about the guys who do FX, Forex, they make money. You hear BTC, ETC, etc. There's a lot of money there, Bitcoin and exotics. And these things are legal. That's the truth. As long as you're using your own money to do them, they are legal. So if you research into that, there are what I call desktop financial trading opportunities available for us in the global scale. Secondly, even within Nigeria, things are shifting. Technology has reduced the barrier to entry in certain sectors. Technology, right, has made it easier and cheaper for you to do and compete with bigger players. We've all heard the story about Money Point recently in the last 1 week. Money Point is a business that was valued. It's a fintech, right? The truth is a fintech is a bank, all right? Anything that processes your transactions, keeps your money for you, provides your money for you to make payments, is a bank. That's what it is. We can call it fintech, we can call it what we like. Now, I'll tell you one thing. Up to 2 years ago, they recently changed the capital requirement for a bank. But up to 2 years ago, the minimum capital required to own a commercial bank and form it was 50 billion naira. 50 billion naira. But there was what we called microfinance banks. They were smaller. 2 3 years ago, the owners and promoters of Money Point, they couldn't get 50 billion naira. So what did they do? They got a microfinance bank license in Ogun State, one of the cheaper places, for 20 million naira. And they came into this sector, pulled all the technology they could pull in, leveraged on that license. Transaction processing is one of the things that microfinance banks can do. And today they are a $1 billion valued business. Just because they had that understanding of how to utilize technology, right, to leverage their business and grow. And they are the threat. The reason why CBN has told big banks to go and get money, they are the threat to the big banks. And quite a lot of that, it's not just Money Point, there's OPay, but OPay is predominantly owned by foreigners who came to Nigeria to do the business. And there are other banks coming up like that. So technology, and that's just in the banking sector. In the food sector, restaurants, wellness sector, hospitality sector, who needs hotels now when you have shoplets? You know, there's so many things. And you know, the shoplet guy doesn't need to go and advertise all over the place. You just go to hotels.ng.com. They're just, technology is changing the game. So look there, I know Nigeria has all these problems and we talked about them, but the opportunity exists. Then another thing, I talked about changing preferences in the way we spend our money and all of that. But the world itself is also forcing some changes on us. Don't think that all of a sudden, see, 10 years ago, owning an inverter didn't even make sense. It didn't make sense. I had one, and I was like, why did I waste my money on this thing? 2 reasons, and I'll tell you why. 2 reasons why owning an inverter didn't make sense. And it just shows you how the world changes. I had one, it cost me 600 grand some 10, 12 years ago. Now, the battery technology was not very resilient. So we used to use the same batteries that cars use. And in 6 months, they were very expensive. And in 6 months, they'll quench. And you had to buy new batteries and change them. So your inverter will cost you 600,000 in January. And you find yourself in June buying another set of batteries for 600,000 in June. 1.2 million, all right. And all of a sudden, now, petrol or diesel is 5 times the price. So the generator that was the easier option has become much more expensive. And guess what? We now have batteries that can do 2-3 years without quenching. The game has changed. So the world is becoming more eco-friendly, sustainability conscious, creating new business opportunities. So alternative energy sources, clean tech, edu tech, whatever tech is there. Think about it. I've talked about shifting consumer preferences. I've talked about how the health and wellness. I mean, who used to buy vitamin, whatever vitamin that? Who used to go to the pharmacy to just buy food supplements? I mean, what's the word supplement? Supplements started growing slowly and steadily. Today now, if you're not taking supplements, you're not somebody who's conscious about his health. You know? And these are new areas, new ways of thinking. You need to, somebody will tell me if I haven't had a massage in 30 days, something is wrong with me. The gym, look at what you guys are doing with iFitness. In our time, you go and play football. If you could find a football field, nobody went to gym. Now, gym business, I have a friend who owns a mall, you know, and he put a gym there. And he's telling me it's unbelievable. He thought the gym was just going to be a pool strategy. It was one of his biggest businesses. And then, like I said, there's growing acceptance for locally produced goods. In our time, when we were younger, maybe Nikki Africana was the more popular designer in those days. How much did she used to make? Who really used to wear her clothes? But today you have Mickey James, you have Vodi, you have Baldon, you know, and we're proud to put on those labels. They're like Tommy Hilfiger, they're like Ralph today, because people have changed. The younger generation have given us the notion to place more value on what we create here. It's just as beautiful. So let all these things be in your mind that there is opportunity here in Nigeria, all right? So let me rush. I've been informed my time is not too much. So where are the opportunities? You have traditional sectors. You have the agribusiness, manufacturing, fashion, housing and real estate, food and beverages, fast-moving consumer goods. What's the fastest moving consumer good and the easiest one? Pure water. It always used to be invest your business 101, go and do pure water, all right? You have food and beverages, restaurants somewhere, housing and real estate. We have a big man here on the housing side, real estate side. The opportunities still lie there. Fashion, the opportunities still lie there. But I call them traditional sectors, right? And we, if we have time, we'll look into it and we'll talk about a few people who are successful there. But there are new areas that I'm hoping the young people here will take note of. We have fintech, we have edutech, which is teaching online, clean tech, sustainability, recycling, waste management, health tech. Health tech is very big now. People are going online, giving information, taking their tests, and getting consulting. He's a doctor, he'll talk to you about that. I've talked about global outsourcing, remote work. Then we have e-commerce value chain enablers. Gone are the days you bought bikes just to be an Okada service. You can now have 3, 4, 5 bikes and service people who deliver food, people who deliver clothes. So enabling the e-commerce value chain, there are a lot of opportunities there. Beauty and wellness, makeup spas, hospitality, shop lengths, transportation. I mean, I think if pure water was the easiest business to do yesterday, now I think Uber and Bolt is the easiest business to do today. So these are all opportunities for young people to look at. In the agribusiness sector, companies like Zatec and Co continue to dominate the poultry farming industry. But when we look at agro-processing, new businesses like Ace Foods have come in, Persop rice farms, and fish farming, we have Oasis farms, Greenfield farms. Then we have what we now call commodity aggregators. So you go online and some people are able to help you get wholesale agri output commodities. You have Farm Crowdy, you have Agro Right, you now have what is called urban farming. And there are some companies in Nigeria that are doing that, farming within towns, in fashion and food, you have clothing apparel, Kai Collective, Garb Island, retail. You have so many of these. Food shops, food and beverage, Agege Burger, Red Gourmet. You'd have heard about food aggregators like Glovo, Jumia Foods. Why am I calling these names, right? They are doing things differently from the way they were done before. They're leveraging technology. They're building market share. They're making money. And the foreign investors, the private equity investors, the angel investors are bringing. So you have things like Series A funding, Tier 2 funding. It's because people see potential in these businesses, right? The opportunities in clean tech, CNG. You've all heard about compressed natural gas. It's a new area, and believe you me, it's going to grow. Because just like I told you that using solar was not a sustainable alternative 10 years ago. Petrol is going to die 10 years from now. CNG, it is, because the pricing comparison, the environmental benefits, etc., is far out surpassing. Devaluation has taken the removal of subsidy and devaluation has made petrol no longer sustainable. So CNG is going to be an alternative. Recycling, waste management, mobile payments, off-grid solar, etc. These are areas to look at. The fitness sector, skincare, beauty salons, the makeup business is going to continue. There was even a recent article written by Nairametrics on how the makeup business is now, I don't know how much they call it, maybe 80 billion naira a year industry. Yes, with 8 major players there. So we need to look at that. Delivery and logistics, first delivery, gig logistics, all. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about was, look, on the employment side, if you're struggling to raise capital, or you're someone who still feels that, look, I need time to work and raise money to do my business, then I think you need to spend some time looking at global outsourcing and remote work. You have online tutoring, where even, I had a colleague in my office who resigned recently, and he came to me when he wanted to resign, and I asked him, what are you going to do? He said, I've already been doing what I'm going to do. He says he teaches English online. He teaches English to Eastern Europeans who need it. So he's been doing it at night. When he closes at 6 p.m., he gets home, he teaches them 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. till 4 a.m., right? And he was making good money doing it. He said he wants to resign because he wants to be teaching in 24 hours. Wow. And he's doing it. This has gone on now for 6 months, and he is really much, his net worth is much better than it used to be. There are other areas like data analysis, cyber security, cloud architecture, engineers. It just doesn't have to be in technology alone. You have virtual assistants, which is like customer relationship managing. I've talked about desktop trading, where you can go online and trade stocks and bonds and in the international market. Then there's also digital marketing. You can learn this, read this, do the research, and through digital marketing, you get a lot of work. There's Shopify, e-shops. I mean, a lot of young people today are sitting on their desk, making a lot more money than those of us that have been working for 20, 25 years. So look at the remote jobs, right? So I'll try and conclude. Bottom line, what do you need? I want in summary the things I think you need to succeed. I've only talked about ideas today. I've talked about what's going on in the economy, what the opportunities are, what the challenges are, the areas that are still doing well despite these challenges, and what you can look at to insulate yourself from Nigeria's economy. But generally, go away with these other principles, right? Leveraging TCL skills is necessary. Nobody's saying you need to learn coding. Nobody's saying you need to learn Python. It's not that difficult. But you need to understand the trends in technology. Just reading and knowing what's going on there, all right? And educating yourself about technology in its basic form is a necessity. You must network, both online and offline networking. Meet people, relate with people. Because no matter the ideas, if you don't find the enablers, you won't be able to take your ideas into fruition. You must embrace innovation and technology, and you must use research to focus on high growth sectors because that's where the opportunities are. If you adopt these principles with a learning mindset, right, you will succeed and you'll find advantage in this economy. So that's more or less what I have to say. Thank you.
Please, can you give Mr. Enesi Makoju another round of applause? My own personal story, I've suddenly put it, I've just tucked it away, based on the things he has shared with us this morning. Really interesting. Please drop the volume just a little bit. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We must leverage on technology. We must leverage on innovation. We must network, relationships. Yes! Eye-opening indeed. So I want to give us all, 2 minutes and write action points. Do you have questions for him? If you have questions, write it down now. I want to give you 2 minutes to do that because he's going to come back later. Panel session, all the other speakers, and we're going to ask them questions. We're going to do some brainstorming together. All right? We're going to do brainstorm, but I want to give you a minute to write down your questions now so that you don't forget them. Can I have that music up while we're writing for 1 minute? Please get your books. As I said, we must leave here different. So if you're going to ask writing questions, start writing how you're going to leverage on innovation and technology based on what he has said. Let's think about that for a second. Even me, I'm reaching out for my own notes. Okay? We must build relationships. My goodness, interesting stuff here. Lots of fields that we can work in: agro-processing, fintech, edutech, health tech, remote work, e-commerce value chain. My goodness, commodity aggregators. Ooh, that was hot. All right, so write that down. Right. I'll give you a minute, okay? Let's have a few more seconds to write that down. Beautiful work there. Many thoughts come to my mind. Even having an e-church. Wow. Having an online church. I mean, churches are already online. But just having going all online. Just amazing. My goodness. Thinking outside the box. Wow. All right. Thank you. Please bring the volume down. Thank you. That's beautiful work. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Mr. Enesi Makoju, please. Blowing us out of our socks there in those few minutes that he has spoken. But like I mentioned, he's going to come back. We're going to have an opportunity for him to answer the questions that are in your mind. If you're having a brilliant idea as well, put it down. Okay? I can give you something to think about. How does Africa's finest MC, how am I going to leverage on technology and the digital space? Think about that. Maybe from petrol to CNG, in the next 10 years, it's going to be different. And it's true. That's quite true. It's solar power is even cheaper. Solar energy is a lot cheaper now with solar panels. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. I think let's move on. We have 2 more speakers here today, and then the panel session. So please, everybody get